here we go. Excuse the floating head. I'm wearing my camouflage again. And this is another live stream. I love doing these live, so if I start fumbling a little bit, excuse me. So in this video, we're going to be talking about how the U.S. Army specifically has decided we need better anti-tank drones. Now, this is a little confusing for some people because the U.S. military overall probably has one of the best drone programs and drone capabilities throughout the world. However, anyone who's ever worked with infantry, I was a combat engineer, I wasn't infantry, but if you talk to any infantry today, when it comes to anti-tank capabilities or pocket drones that could take out tanks like with Ukraine and Russia, terrible. It's not there. Now, there's many reasons for this, but nonetheless, what is happening is this. The U.S. Army is creating something called I got it right here, the LASSO. The LASSO is a lethal... Wait, I got it right here. Let me pull it up real quick for you guys. I just had it right here. Low altitude stalking and strike ordnance. So low altitude stalking and strike ordnance, the LASSO. Now, first thing I want to say is this. The main reason why the U.S. military has decided, U.S. Army has decided we need better drone capabilities for the ground fighter right there now, infantry combat teams, is because what's happening in Russia, Ukraine. Now, many people speculate the main reason why Russia, Ukraine is happening and why the U.S. military is so invested in this is to see what we need and don't need. And what we do need is better anti-tank drone capabilities. Now, one thing we also have to consider is this, that the U.S. military in the last 20 years has not had to face somebody with near capabilities. So the U.S. military has never had to deal with too much anti-drone type work or really even using drones. One thing that's been overly hyped in the media with the U.S. military's arsenal is the Switchblade, but if you ask soldiers who've deployed to Afghanistan, Iraq, hardly ever used. It's been used, yes, but there's almost been no need for the regular infantry soldier to use a drone in really any sense because of how much air superiority there was. There was already drones constantly scanning combat zones in Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq. And as far as using drones in real-time direct action combat, there was no need for that because no matter what, for the most part, U.S. soldiers always had artillery waiting on standby, helicopters waiting on standby. In fact, the Taliban, towards the end of the Afghanistan conflict, realized, hey, let's actually start using some drones. And I challenge you guys, go ahead and go to Google and look up towards the end of the Afghanistan conflict. Soldiers were dealing with drones dropping on their heads and stuff like that. So the U.S. military actually had to develop anti-drone guns, anti-drone nets, stuff like that. Nonetheless, it is interesting to see that the U.S. Army used the word urgent, like they need these now, and they need them by the year 2024. That's how fast the regular infantry soldier is going to be getting these new drones. And for those of you who are just joining this live stream real quick, I'll be posting this. We're talking about how the U.S. Army wants these new drones, and they need them for anti-tank capabilities. Now, for most soldiers, the way it works is you do have pocket drone capabilities and you do have handheld drones, and you can throw them, but they're mainly used in the sense of reconnaissance. And for the most part, every unit who goes out in combat operations, you do have some sort of drone capability, but that is a specific military specialty, occupation specialty, or MOS. So what happens is you have these soldiers who see a tank, but now they need to call it in or they need to hope that there's some sort of drone support and they might have to wait on that. Whereas with Russia, Ukraine, there's none of that. If they see the tank, they can throw the drone right there and they can take it out. The U.S. Army does not really have that capability. They have the capability, but they don't have the widespread capability, and it's not necessarily the norm. The one thing that we're learning also about the Ukraine-Russian conflict is the development of these 21st century tactics and these old tactics. And what I mean by that is you have trench warfare, then all of a sudden you have trench warfare being developed with drone warfare, redigging your trenches, digging deeper into the trenches. And as far as anti-tank capabilities, Ukraine and Russia are both realizing you do need to have that in the sense of drones being deployed right there and then, whereas the U.S. military has the capability, yes, to deploy drones anywhere in the world, but again, this is in the context of the regular infantry fighter, like the most basic, the private infantry fighter, where if there's a tank or they need a drone quick, they can release it immediately and not have to call it in, like artillery fire and so on. Let me see what else some of my notes say. If you guys have a question, go ahead and ask. I don't think there's really that much else to this. Like, the main thing also with Ukraine is that there was a lot of collaboration outside of the Ukrainian military. You had a lot of drone enthusiasts. You had Elon Musk saying he's going to help out with the GPS capabilities and the satellite capabilities. And the one thing that's always stopped the US military from progressing as a unit is using outside sources or using ideas from the outside. Everything is always done internally, and this is not necessarily the greatest thing. This is when you start to have things that are military grade items. But nonetheless, I think that the US military and the government has learned enough from the Ukrainian conflict that drones are the way, they are the future. Whether that's air, sea, or land, you do need to have anti-tank drone capabilities. Now, as far as everything else, again, this is an urgent call to action. Scientists and developers are hopefully trying to get this out by 2024. Now, whenever the US Army says we need something now, unfortunately, you do have a multi-step process of like, here's the first generation, and all of a sudden it might suck. Here's the second generation, that might stink. So this tends to happen a lot, unfortunately, especially with like night vision technology. And I forget what the one goggles were called, where all the soldiers were supposed to get these goggles, and they never really ended up being great. But nonetheless, yeah, this is what's happening. And the main thing is this, is that they want the soldier to be able to develop these drones immediately. Whereas the Switchblade, there is a bit of complications. If you guys don't know what the Switchblade is, this is the hyped drone that was given to Ukraine where you stick a tube in the ground, it launches, and then hopefully you can guide it. But even then, there is a little bit of complications there. As far as the drones that they want now, we've learned enough from this conflict on exactly what we need. And I think the biggest issue, again, the U.S. military is going to have is that the U.S. military tends to stop itself from developing the perfect product. They're just trying to get this out as fast as possible. And unfortunately, even if you have the best product ever, you do need time to develop the tactics. So now we might see a situation where we might be bringing in some Ukrainians to teach us something as we are teaching the Ukrainians a lot of stuff. Nonetheless, this is what's going on right now. The U.S. Army wants low-altitude flying drones that can be more or less handheld. The verbiage they're using is that these drones will be held in a tube and they can be deployed immediately. So anyway, I see somebody had said something about Taiwan or the Taiwanese. Yes, this would be perfect application for them as well. So I'm about to post this live stream. Leave your comments and opinions down below. And that's what's happening right now. This is a very urgent thing, and I think it's about time. I remember even being a soldier, I was thinking, the drones we have are okay, but they're only used for reconnaissance, and even then, they're just a big pain in the butt. Nobody wanted them because you're just carrying around this dinky thing that's just going to fall apart as soon as you throw it. Now these soldiers today are going to be getting drones that can actually do some good work. Besides being a reconnaissance element, it can be used as a direct action element. Nonetheless, that's what's happening, and we'll see you guys later.